Hi, welcome to another video of the Target Individual program, the Target Individual Experience. Today, this morning, I would like to do a different video, and I will do my usual format, but I want to do this video in particular for all the TIs out there because you guys need to know this information and also to watch out and look out for certain things when you are seeking professional help, someone to help you, to talk about what it is that's being done to you. Okay, to talk about what can be done to minimize the social, psychological, economical negative effect that being in this program will have you go through and continue to go through. So, yesterday, I went to see my psychiatrist, and I've talked about this before that I stopped seeing him because, he started targeting me more so than usual. Before in the beginning, it was very subtle, and then as time went along, it became very aggressive with the targeting. Now, one of the things I like to do, particularly when, you know, experiencing what I and others have experienced, but I'm just speaking from my point of view, is that when I begin to really understand, it's like this feeling that you have in your gut when everybody's telling you that you're crazy, you're paranoid or you're paranoid schizophrenic, what have you. When you go to seek professional help and they don't want to listen to you, they just want to prescribe you medication as if, prescribing your medication is going to make what is happening to you or being done to you go away. Okay? And what I come to realize and understand is that the majority of psychiatrists in this country, even doctors, okay, who have taken an oath to do no harm, whether it be physically, psychologically, okay, they constantly break that oath. And it's very common and frequently in the field of psychiatry. So let's say someone is following you, okay? Someone is sending you death threats, and they do it in a coercive psychological way, okay? And when I say coercive psychological way, I mean that the threats are not verbal in nature, meaning that no one is coming up to you and say, I'm gonna kill you. No one is coming up to you and say, I'm gonna hurt your kids. Okay? But it's being done in a coercive psychological manner. So for instance, you walk out of your house every morning and all of a sudden there's a hearse parked in front of your house or your apartment building. Okay? Now there's no funeral. Okay? And again, it happened with such frequency, and it's every time you walk out of your house, your apartment, whatever you, and you see this. Okay? And then this goes on for weeks and weeks and weeks, and then it stops. Now, you've already been conditioned. Okay? So now they can go a couple of months without parking a hearse in front of your apartment or your house. So let's say you're driving, you're walking, and all of a sudden you start to see a hearse. So you get a very uneasy feeling. You might even get or feel fear or fearful feeling. Okay? Now, imagine you're walking with your children and the people walking towards you, and as they walk towards you, they stare at your children. Now, at the same time that they're staring at your children, you see a hearse drive by. Okay? And it happens quite frequently now. So now you're the target, you're being conditioned two ways. Okay? There is a psychological threat of death against you, and then there's a psychological threat of death against your children. So now you're walking again, or you're driving, and people approaching you or walking in the opposite direction that you're walking, coming towards you, they'll do this. Or. Okay, and again, it happened with such frequency that it becomes conditioned in your mind. Okay, so now you're walking with your kids, and people are looking at you, and they're doing this. And then they look at your children. Now, at the same time as that is happening, a hearse passed by. Okay? Now, there are numerous ways in psychology or psychiatry that you can send subliminal message to anyone. Okay? Now, some people will say, well, you know what? My mind is not susceptible to that. And that's BS. Okay? Everyone's mind is susceptible to brainwashing, whether you know the tactics or not. And I'm going to tell you why. For decades, the U.S. government, the CIA, Department of Defense, the NSA have all been developing what is called directed energy weapons. Now, what people don't understand, I don't know, is that there are many types of directed energy weapons. Okay? There are weapons that uses radio waves. There are weapons that uses microwave. There are weapons that uses pulse energy waves. That's just to name a few. There are weapons that uses microwave that is broadcast at the same frequency as the human brainwaves, and they use those weapons for mass mind control. Then there are also directed energy microwave weapons that operate on the same brain identifiable frequency, because every human being, our brain operate at a certain frequency, but then each individual person have another frequency, all right, or what is called a brainwave pattern. That is what's the word I'm looking for here, that is identifiable to each individual. It's kind of like your fingerprint, right? Your fingerprint is unique, and so is that brainwave pattern. It is unique to that specific individual. It's what is called brain fingerprint. Now you can look that up. Information is out there. Okay. So, let me get back to what I was saying, but I just kind of wanted to put that out there. So, went to see my psychiatrist yesterday, and I walked in. So I started telling him what was happening because I haven't seen him in a year, and he was like, "Well, how come I haven't seen you in a year?" I said, "Well, I kind of took time off just to do more research and stuff like that, and plus, put videos out there about what has happened to me, what's been done to me, and I said, lately, I've been under heavy remote neural monitoring. Now, for those that don't know what remote neural monitoring is, again, you can look that up, but Basically, you're implanted with a microchip. Okay, and people may say, well, that's impossible because they have to operate on you to put a chip in you, and you don't show any scarring or nothing like that. And I tell people all the time, the easiest way to get to the brain is through the nasal cavity. Okay, and if they're going to implant a chip in your brain, that is where they're going to do it. And these chips are so small. Okay, they're smaller than a rice grain. Some of them is as small as a grain of sand. Okay, and with a very long needle, it can be placed anywhere in the brain. Okay, so maybe not anywhere, but in the specific region in which they want to place those chips to monitor your mind. Okay, so I've been on the heavy remote monitoring. There are days when, if I'm saying certain words, there will be sirens, car honking every time I say certain words. Okay, and I'm not talking about the type of sirens where the ambulance or the police is driving by, and the sirens is really really loud, and then it dissipates as they move away. These are very short bursts of very loud noise, and so that has been happening very frequently. Also, waking up in the middle of the night again to loud sirens, and again they're very short, about 2 to 3 seconds. Okay, as they drive by really fast, and this is the police that's doing this. Okay, and I've shown videos where I'm doing a show like this, and you start hearing the sirens. Okay, I was telling somebody, when I wake up in the morning and I'm laying in bed for about half an hour, not really doing anything, it's silent. The minute I get out of bed, the noise campaign starts. Okay, so I was explaining all of this to my psychiatrist, and said to me, actually, let me go back, because I was telling the story about what happened the other morning, where they used the technology, right, the microwave technology, to wake my son up. Okay, and this was very early in the morning, so I'm up. Okay, because again, they do the sleep deprivation tactic to the technology to wake you up multiple times in the night, and every time you get up, there'll be a siren. Excuse me. Right? So my son wakes up around minutes to 6, and I was sleeping on the couch at the time, and he came and he stand staring at me. Didn't say a word. Okay, he just stared at me, and that went on for like about 5 minutes. And I'm laying there and I'm looking at him with my eyes half open, because I don't want him to see that I'm awake, just in case it snaps him out of it. But I wanted to see how long he would stand there. And he literally stand there for about 5 minutes. And I opened my eyes and I said, "Ethan, go back to bed." And as I tell him that, he says, "I can't go to sleep." So at this point, I'm like, okay, let me make you breakfast. And he says, okay. And as he turns around and walk away, he puts his hand behind his back with his palm facing towards me and walked away. Okay? So I knew that day, I was going to be in for it. It's going to be a heavy day of targeting. Okay? And of course it was, because, and again, with Pam, she wakes up in the morning, and I went to wake up because, it was getting late and she needed to get up for work. And as she gets up, she takes, again, her hands, wipe it across her face, but with her palm facing towards me. Okay? Didn't say a word. So I'm like, okay. Anyway. And so as I was telling him this, he says to me, do I feel like hurting my kids? And I said, why would you ask me that question? because I didn't give him any indication that I wanted to hurt my kids or anybody else. I was just telling them what was happening to me and trying to explain to him what the technology does and how they use the technology on my kids, on Pam, even my family member when I go to my house. Uh, you know how the technology is used to target me. And I said to him, I said, well, are you trying to slap some type of violent label on me? And at that point was, I was like, okay, I see what you're doing here. And I told him, I said, listen, I see what you're doing here, and it's not going to work. And so I said to him, I said, you know what? I said, look, I don't have any inclination of harming my kids, anybody else, unless it's in self-defense. Okay? And then he says to me with this worried look on his face, do you have any, do you think about harming me? I said, no. I said, I don't want to harm you, at least not physically. I want to expose you. I want to harm you that way. Okay? Exposing you for what you are doing, for what you have agreed to participate in, for you basically participating in a government mind control experiment. Okay? And, thinking that, you, because of your religious belief, that it's okay. Okay? Because someone in an authoritative position tell you that it's okay, that you just follow along and go and do this, and basically you're harming me. Okay? And then he says to me, well, do you think of harming people out there? And I'm like, all right, so now you're trying to victimize them, to say that I'm going to harm them. I said, listen, man, I said, from you see me coming here speaking to you, have I ever showed you any any type of tendency towards being violent? And he says no. I said, okay. And I said to him, listen, I understand you're a psychiatrist, you gotta do what you gotta do, but I know what I'm talking about. Okay? So I said to him, and again, this is not the first time I've asked him this. I said to him, do you believe that there's such a thing as coercive persuasion? And he tells me no. This is from a psychiatrist. Okay? He says to me that he do not believe there's such a thing as coercive persuasion. Okay? Now, as a TI, and I'm going to tell you other TIs, this is the first question if you go to see a psychiatrist or psychologist to talk about what's happening to you. Ask them this: do you believe in coercive? Not do you believe, but do you know what is coercive persuasion? Do you know what is a coercive persuasion program? And if they tell you no, I can guarantee you that individual, man or female, has been compromised, have agreed to participate in your psychological and your mental demise. Okay? So no matter how many times they may prescribe you medication, it is basically to dismiss anything that you're saying, because at that point they're no longer listening to you. Because my psychiatrist doesn't even take notes when I'm there. Does not take notes. He has never taken out a pen and paper and write. Now, there was another psychiatrist that I used to see in Manhattan, a Russian psychiatrist, an older lady. And at least she took note. I mean, she used to talk to me very subtly, but not to like this guy. But she took notes. She took notes. This guy never took notes. Never took notes. Okay? So when he says that to me, he said to me, basically he said, I don't believe you. I don't believe that there's such a thing as a coercive persuasion program. I don't believe anything about a targeted individual. And that's the narrative that they have agreed to. That's the thing that they have agreed to say, to deny what we are experiencing, to lump us in with people who are mentally ill. And that's not to say that what have been done to us haven't given us some form of mental illness, some form of stressfulness, anxiety, PTSD. You know, I'm not dismissing that because clearly, from me experiencing what I'm experiencing, I can tell you that I do have some form of PTSD. I do have anxiety. I do have, a kind of rapid thoughts to where, I can't think straight. And that is because what has been done to me. Okay? So I'm not going to dismiss that. But in terms of, having mental illness that was natural, that was inherited, no. This was brought on by external events. This is brought on by what I call these people. I wouldn't call them CIA doctors, but I would say doctors paid by the government. Okay? So, again, he says to me that there's no such thing as coercive persuasion. Now, I said to him, well, if you don't think that there's no such thing as coercive persuasion, then, me talking to you, wait, let me, hold on. So let me go back because I'm going to get to that. So, he says to me, again, there's no such thing as coercive persuasion, right? He said, and then he says that he doesn't believe, because I said to him, I said, you're a doctor. You took an oath to do no harm. And he said, yeah, I took an oath to do no harm, and I will never, he says, I'm not compromised. I will never compromise, my position or what have you. And by him saying there's no such thing as coercive persuasion, I know already that he's already been compromised. Okay? He's already been compromised, denying that there's no such thing as coercive persuasion. Okay? And, so then he says also that I don't believe that any psychiatrist, right, will ever break their oath. So I said, really? I said, well, I want you to go online, look up a New York Times article called The CIA Doctors. Okay? And at this point, again, I can see that, there was a blank look on his face. So he tuned me out. Okay? So they've been conditioned, manipulated into just tuning out anything that will change their mind perspective. Okay? Whether they've been compromised or not. Okay? Because, again, they're based in what it is that they're doing on the fact that the TI, okay, the experimentee, don't have the ability or the critical thinking to research these things, to research what is happening to them. That they're just going to, and, that's why they use a lot of the religious theme, because they want you, the TI, to focus on it being some type of religious experience. Okay? And, in the hopes of they will be absolved from the blame. Okay? Because it's easier to have you believe that it's spiritual warfare, to clear their conscience of what they're doing to you, as opposed to you understanding what's being done to you and wanting to hold them accountable, because they don't want to be held accountable. Okay? So I just want to give a little bit of information. So when he says to me that there's no such thing as coercive persuasion, right? If we go to, hold on here. There you go. So if we go to the American Journal of Psychiatry, let's see where we are here. Here you go. The American Journal of Psychiatry. Okay, so My tab was closed. Okay, here you go. All right. So this was written, volume 136, issue 3, March 1979. Coercive persuasion, brainwashing, religious cult, and deprogramming. This is the American Journal of Psychiatry. Okay? And they're talking about, remember, this is in 1979, and they're talking about coercive persuasion, right? And in brackets, brainwashing. Okay? So, again, when I say that as a TI, and if you're a TI and you go to a psychiatrist, the first thing you need to ask them is, do you know about coercive persuasion? Okay? And if they tell you there's no such thing as coercive persuasion, I can understand them saying, no, I don't know about it. Okay? And then, maybe because you're going to be a patient and you tell them, well, I'm in a coercive persuasion program, they will do the research and, find out what is a coercive persuasion program, right? But when they outright deny it, flat out deny it, as if it doesn't exist, what they're saying to you is that you don't exist. Whatever we're doing to you, we can do it because now you don't exist. Okay? So, here it is. And I talked about, in a lot of my shows about religious cult. And again, this psychiatrist, he is religious, he is Christian. And, so I know that particularly people of religious belief are very easily manipulated. People who have religious belief have a very strong conviction about spreading their belief onto other people. Okay, and here's this guy in a position in which he can influence people's mind. Okay, and he can deny what's happening because again, religion and the use of people who are religious are a big part of coercive persuasion program created by the government, the state, whoever. Okay, whoever in whichever government agency, whether it be security, law enforcement, health and human service, even in academia, they all practice or they all participate in coercive persuasion programming. Okay, and sometimes all those uh, um, industries or government agencies work jointly together. Okay, so, and again, here is the American Journal of Psychiatry talking about coercive persuasion in 1979. Okay, now he also said to me, and I said that he doesn't believe that government agencies, not government agencies, but psychiatrists, uh, any psychiatrist would be compromised and would participate in, these sort of mind control program and experiment. And again, you go back to the research. Here's psychiatrist Colin Ross talking about the CIA doctors and military mind control. Okay, did you hear what he just said? He said from there, it's spilled out into the general culture, meaning the public society. Okay? Okay. Now, when he talks about brain electoral implants, okay, and this was in the late 60s into the 70s. Now, those brain electro implants is actually today microchips. Okay? Okay. He says implanting those brain electrodes into monkeys, cats, and children as young as 11 years old, and they're able to control their behavior remotely. Okay? So when I talk about remote neural monitoring, this is exactly what I'm talking about. When I show through my video, when I'm driving and I'm I usually have a set routine, a set route that I take, and all of a sudden you'll see me as I'm turning to take my regular route, I deviate, go straight, and at the other corner there is a perpetrator either pinching his nose or sticking his hands in his ears. Okay, or doing some other type of hand signal. This is all coincides. So they're using, microchipping of target individuals, controlling their behavior, their thought pattern, the way of thinking. Okay, and this is what's happening now. We as TIs today, and they've always been people they've experimented on. Why people don't believe that the government experiment on human beings, that they still do it, is like beyond my belief. Okay, when the history has shown it. Okay, I mean, but again, you have to understand that with the technology, they don't even have to implant a microchip in everyone. Okay, because it's all been done through microwave operating on the same brain frequency. But we as target individuals, they want to study us one on one. We have a more concentrated form of mind control experiment being implanted, and then using religion and religious people, okay, and using the religious theme on them and on the TI, okay, to get them to participate in the harassment, the poisoning of our food, the breaking into our home, stealing our belongings, the destruction of our property, because we speak out about it and we decide to fight back. And so they're going to use every means in their possession to suppress us, to suppress our thoughts, to suppress our action, to suppress our fight against them. They will threaten our kids, family members. I mean, I've shown videos of, you know, trying to, make me have an accident or trying to make me hit somebody. Okay? And so this is, what it is that they're doing. All right? Okay? So, remember what he said. Mind control is not in the past. Military mind control is not in the past. It's in the present and the future. That's where it's at. Okay? So let's go on to another. Actually, I was going to put this psychiatrist on blast, but you know what? Sometimes, I feel like, I gotta stoop to their level, because these people, they're just ridiculous. But I'm not gonna put them on blast yet. Okay. So anyway, uh, let's see. Where's the article? There was an article that I'm looking for here. Okay, here it is. So, and again, I just want to show the broad scope of those in the medical field. Okay, so it's not just doctors. Okay, it's not just doctors. All right, I want you guys to understand this. So I'm gonna read this article. Okay, it's a very short article. So let me read it. Okay. All right. So, and this is from Physicians for Human Rights. Okay. Through evidence, change is possible, and this what I try to do is give you guys evidence of what is happening to me. Okay, because the only way change is gonna come, the only way they may not stop what they're doing, but maybe some changes can be implemented. Because again, we're talking about government agencies, the CIA, Department of Defense. They have the power. We, the people, don't. They've taken that power away from us. When they develop these mind control technologies. Okay, so, and this was written July 25th, 2016. Last month, the CIA released more than 50 declassified documents about the illegal torture program it operated after the September 11, 2001 terror attacks. Many of them elaborate on the sheer brutality of the CIA practice, including new details about the 2002 death of Gul Rahman, who was beaten and left to die, chained half naked to the floor in sub-freezing temperature at a CIA black site prison in Afghanistan. But much of the analysis of the document overlooked a key revelation: the extent to which physicians assistants, nurse practitioners, and psychologists aided and abetted torture. A subset of these documents confirm how the CIA used the participants of medical professionals to give credence to the lie that torture was safe, legal, and effective. Gul Rahman suffered torture under the watchful eye of the CIA medical professionals at the Salt Pit prison in Afghanistan from his arrival in August to his death from hypothermia in November 2002. An internal investigation released as part of the latest cache shows that medics actually debated what standard of care they were meant to provide Rahman and other prisoners. They eventually called the CIA medical office headquarters and were told simply, the Hippocratic Oath states that if someone is sick, you treat them. So imagine that these people have to call the CIA medical headquarters, okay, in order for them to be told that their oath that they take is to, if someone is sick, you treat them. Okay, like they couldn't think of that themselves and treat the person, so they would torture someone and then not treat them. Okay, I mean, that's the mentality that was created when the CIA brought in these individuals. Okay, the instructions were intentionally vague and logically incoherent. Given the purpose of the secret prison, the exact information through torture, and the instructions were duly ignored. And again, they were ignored, right? So even though the CIA tell them, hey, if someone is sick, you treat them, these doctors, psychiatrists, nurse practitioners, they all ignore it. Okay, and the available evidence show that Rahman was brutalized hours before he froze to death. What's more, health professionals repeatedly signed off on his torture and appalling condition of confinement and failed to note any health problem despite regular abuse. These breaches by health professionals were directly responsible for Rahman's death. Not surprisingly, the death investigation includes a doctor conclusion that Rahman is to be blamed for dying of hypothermia. And again, this goes back to me talking to the psychiatrist and telling him, look, listen, you're not going to try to victimize, put these people out there who are psychologically harassing, psychologically torturing me, okay, targeting my children. You're not going to make them the victims and try to make me as the perpetrator. They're the perpetrator. I'm the victim, okay? And this is what they do, okay? This is what they do. It's like the bullying someone, and then when the person punches back, he goes crying and plays the victim card, okay? It's not going to happen with me, okay? These people, they're not victims, okay? They are perpetrators. And what they're doing is a crime. And what the police is doing is a crime. And what the people above them is doing is a crime. Okay? And I don't care how much you threaten me or you threaten my kids, I'm going to continue to expose it. Because I already told this dude, this psychiatrist, I said, it's going to be my job to expose you and every other doctor out there or anybody else who participate in these sort of psychological torture or psychological experiment. Okay? All right. So after they blame the victim for his own death, okay, by throwing away his last meal, he was unable to provide his body with a source of fuel to keep him warm. The autopsy summary reads as a final act of medical complicity. And again, complicity in illegal experimentation has always been part of the medical community. It has always been part of law enforcement. It has always been part of the Department of Health and Human Services. It has always been part of the Department of Environmental Protection. If you look throughout the history of all these agencies, they have all been complicit in government experiments, whether it be psychological, biological, chemical, they have all been complicit. Okay? It is a crime as well as the violation of medical ethics to facilitate torture and ill treatment. Any health professional, indeed any reasonable person, know that placing human beings in a coffin, subjecting them to freezing temperature, sexual humiliating them, and again, you look at some of these things that I'm saying here, sexual humiliation is a theme that they use with us TIs, okay? Or drowning them will cause severe physical and mental pain. But CIA health profession abandoned their ethics and became participant in such acts. Instead of stopping the program, the CIA medical office drafted a list of guidelines following Rahman's death and the continued mistreatment of other detainees. Now, I've always wondered why when TIs who've been targeted like this, like I've been targeted, that some of them commit suicide. Okay? Now, do these individuals who participate in their harassment, in their psychological torture, the people who microchip them, okay, do they face any sort of punishment? And the answer is no. And so that's why the perps continue to do what they do. That's why these doctors continue to do what they do. That's why these police officers continue to harass and try to intimidate. That's why they do what they do, because they figure, because it's proven, okay, time and time again, that nothing will happen to them unless they are caught so red-handed, okay, And even then, they would just acknowledge it and promise not to do it again and create guidelines, okay? But then it goes back to being the same way. And what they'll do next is terrorize the targets even more in order to quiet them, to shut them up. Okay? So, let's see here. So, okay, so the medical and psychological guideline instructed CIA medical personnel to treat detainees, but only to the point where it doesn't interfere with torture. So they can continue psychologically torturing me. They can continue trying to, not trying, but poisoning my food. They continue using microwave on my children to the point where, you know, we're all suffering headaches. Okay? But as long as it doesn't interfere with what's going on, you know, that's fine. That's fine. Okay? Unbelievable. So, let's see. Okay, adequate medical care should be provided, the document says, but should not undermine the anxiety, the dislocation of the various interrogation techniques are designed to foster. And despite the title, there are virtually no psychological guidelines for assessing the mental harm these torture techniques would inflict. It is extraordinary. In an extraordinary display of doublespeak, and another TI, I'll love to use this because this is exactly what they do. The CIA Medical Office states all health professionals remain under the professional obligation to do no harm. Again, does that make any sense? You're giving them all the reason to harm someone. Matter of fact, you're instructing them. Meanwhile, you know, you're telling them they're obligated to do no harm. Okay? It then directly contradicts this central ethic principle of medicine by providing guidelines on how to supervise waterboarding, sleep deprivation, confinement, and other forms of torture. Okay? The architect of the CIA unlawful program, psychologists James Mitchell and Bruce Jensen, were paid $81 million. And again, money is the root of it. Okay? These people, they profit off of us TIs. Okay? So that's why my psychiatrist agreed to participate in this, because you know what? He gets more clients. Okay? He gets a lot more clients. Okay? To design and oversee these practices, and are currently being sued in federal court. And this is what we have to do, you know, as TIs, is that you know, and so unfortunate, because what they do is that they take away our resources, our financial resources, to prevent us from you know, ever having the ability to bring lawsuits, you know, the ability to hire investigators, to hire people like Dr. Colin Ross, and also to keep those who know about, you know, these government mind control programs. Okay, they keep them away from us. So if we try to contact them as TIs, our email would not get to those individuals. If we post stuff on a Twitter or Facebook and their Facebook page, what's going to happen is that the minute we post something, the trolls will come in and try to discredit us. Okay? I see the tactics all the time. Okay? So, here's something here. So, antisocial behavior change. If you're not a TI and you're looking at this video and there's anyone around you and all of a sudden you see a change in behavior towards being antisocial or withdrawal from it, is a classic psychological harassment or criminal psychological harassment. Okay, so when you see that happening, that person is under psychological harassment. Okay, so you know, I just wanted to bring that attention. There are other videos by Colin Ross, as well as okay. Let me just before I finish here. So, and I almost forgot about this. Okay, so this is another uh, psychiatrist who basically understands what's being done, how psychiatry is being used for social and political control. Okay, so this is Breggin.com. Okay, this is Peter R. Breggin, MD. Actually, he's not a psychiatrist; he's a medical doctor. But anyway, and I've watched a lot of his videos, and I would recommend TIs go to his website and read up on some of his things, and also look at his YouTube video. It's very very informative. Okay, so this is the psychiatry role in the Holocaust. So again, the same thing that was done in Germany is being done in America. Okay, today, right now. Okay, so German psychiatrists proposed the extermination of mental patients before Hitler came to power. Then, in Nazi Germany, organized psychiatry implemented involuntary eugenical sterilization and euthanasia, ultimately killing up to 100,000 German mental patients. The six psychiatric euthanasia centers utilize medical professional, fake death certificates, gas chamber disguised as showers, and the mass burning of corpses. Okay, psychiatrists from the euthanasia program also participate in the first formalized murders in the concentration camps. Inmates were diagnosed on euthanasia form and sent to the psychiatric euthanasia center. Those facilities later provided training, personnel, and technology for the larger extermination camps. And what's happening here, what they're doing to us as TIs, is reminiscent of exactly this. Okay? Now, we may not be marching into the gas chamber, but a lot of us have taken our own lives. Okay? Okay. So, another part. The widespread diagnosing of children is a subtle form of social control that suppresses children rather than providing them with what they need to fulfill their basic needs in the home, school, and family. For more information about social control and youngsters, see the children section on the, go through this. All right. Also, the psychiatric oppression of women, okay? The use of psychiatric drugs, especially antipsychotic and neuroleptic, to suppress people in nursing homes, in prison, and in totalitarian regime such as the Soviet Union. The use of these drugs to suppress political dissent confirms that these drugs have their therapeutic effect by producing a chemical lobotomy that causes apathy, indifference, and docility in normal animals and people, as well as in political dissidents. This chemical lobotomy results directly from the neurotoxic drug's effects, regardless of the victim's mental and emotional condition at the time, and is not specific for any psychiatric disorder or diagnosis. And so I'm just reading a few stuff here because, again, this is important stuff. Okay? This is very, very important stuff. And, we go through psychosurgery, individual vulnerability, and public health. Okay? So a lot of it, I talk about the Human Health and Resource Department, which is what it's called now, but before it was the Public Health Department, right? And they also participate in this stuff. They also, are willing participant because the government comes in and they're like, well, if you want to be funded, this is what you have to do. Okay? Operating on little black children, again, just trying to give you historical evidence and historical facts of these type of programs continuous in the United States. So when people tell you that, hey, I don't believe the government is doing this, you don't need to talk to them anymore. You need to find people who understand what you're going through, people who have knowledge and understanding, okay? Because we all know society has become dumber and dumber every generation, and this is what it's doing, and this is by design. It is purposeful. Okay, so I'm gonna finish this video, and because I gotta make another video, which me showing exactly, you know, what it is that they're doing in this coercive persuasion program. So I hope this information is important, and I do hope that TIs listen, pay attention, be more aware. Okay, be more aware. Don't just pass off your targeting as some spiritual warfare, supernatural type thing. Okay, and this is, and I'm gonna show you how they try to make me believe that, right? Because again, they want me to follow that narrative. Okay, but it's not working. Okay, and I'm gonna show you guys. Stay tuned.